Dear Ambassador, dear friends, dear colleagues, welcome to this final session of the winter term here at the LSE of the Cañada Blanc Center, in which we have the enormous privilege to have with us Salvador Illa, who needs no introduction, but having taken into account that there are quite a few students here, I'll just say a few words about him. Salvador Illa Roca has had a long career in local and regional politics before becoming Minister of Health. He was Minister of Health in the current government of Pedro Sánchez, but he was in charge during a particular period, which was 2020 to 2022, in which he had to deal with the biggest health challenge we have had to deal in one century, and a beautiful but daunting challenge. And he did it remarkably well. He steered the Spanish strategy in dealing with the COVID pandemic. And then he left the Ministry of Health in 2021 to become the candidate of the socialist party, in this case, the Catalan Socialist Party, for the regional Catalan elections that year. He came first in the elections, and currently he's the Secretary General of the PSC and leader of the opposition in the Catalonian Parliament. And since we have elections coming in the month of May, can I say that you are the socialist candidate for the elections? So, yes, so he's the candidate and probably one of the main options to become president of the Generalitat from May this year. In this conference, he's going to share his views on how to strengthen Europe from Catalonia and how this can be done working with the rest of Spain in order to build a strong and resilient European Union in what has become, for many of us, and you can probably know, an increasingly volatile world. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce, I'll probably ask all of you to welcome him with a good round of applause. And I'd like to introduce Salvador Illa.
Good afternoon to everybody, the ambassador, the delegate. Thank you very much to everybody for attending this conference. It's an honor to be here at the London School of Economics, an institution respected around the world. Let me thank both London School of Economics and the Cañada Blanc Center for hosting today this conference. And thank you, Professor Andrés Rodríguez Poses, for your kind presentation. It's doubly special for me to be here, speaking as the leader of the Socialist Party of Catalonia and candidate to the presidency of Catalonia, because we also remember the decisive role of the Fabian Society played in the creation of the university. The Fabian values of carrying out gradual reforms in the pursuit of social democracy are just as vital and necessary now as they were when the university was founded, as is the role of social research in helping to craft public policies that work in favor of the majority. London is a city of many traditions and many inspirations. Where else are you going to find a place as diverse, as multicultural, as cosmopolitan as the London of today? The London, of course, not without challenges, that provides a shining example of peaceful coexistence. London is living history, history in the making. And now allow me to take you on a little trip through that history. Because if we take a quick walk from this theater, we will find ourselves on the Strand. Carry on and we are on Fleet Street, synonymous with the need to have a free and competitive press, keeping both public and private powers on check. Go a bit further, and we find ourselves at St. Paul's, one of the wonders of world architecture. John Donne, as you probably know, served as the Dean of St. Paul's, and in his most famous poem delivered a great piece of wisdom. No man is an island. And he concluded, each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. I can tell you, having held the responsibility of a Spanish Minister of Health during the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic, that no truer words have been spoken. No person is an island. We are all in this together. We are all in this together. We should never forget this. Ernest Hemingway would subsequently use this poem to title his novel about the Spanish Civil War. We were all in it together then, in the fight against fascism in Europe. And we must all be in it together now in the face of new dangers. Nor do we forget the contributions of young members of the British working class who came to Spain and fought because they understood that when democracy is under attack in one part of the world, it is under attack everywhere. In Spain and Catalonia, we were able to move past the horrors of civil war and dictatorship and construct a robust constitutional democracy, provide an advanced degree of self-government for the historical nations of Spain, and join the European Union. During this political transition, it was understood that the only way to strengthen our own democracy was to join the club of democracies. Federal unity was the only way forward then, and it remains the only way forward now. We currently find ourselves at a historical crossroads, precisely one of those moments where we have the greatest need to our accumulated store of wisdom. Conflict rages on Europe's frontiers. Our Ukrainian allies fight valiantly to resist Vladimir Putin's illegal and savage assault. The civilian population of Gaza is facing unprecedented and unacceptable privations, while Hamas continues to refuse to release its hostage. An outbreak of coups has stopped democratic governments from one end of the Sahel to the other. Tensions are rising in the Pacific. And of course, we face the profound threat of climate change, which we will have to address urgently in the coming years if we are to avoid its very worst effects. The democratic choices we make will be transcendental. In a few months, elections will be held across the European Union, our community of destiny, and the polls are suggesting that the right and the radical right may score a very strong result. In the United States, Donald Trump threatens both to subvert democracy and to break with Europe. We face a stark choice. Have we understood that we are all in this together? That we must cooperate? That we must engage in solidarity? That we must guarantee universal rights? Or will we embark on a path of distrust, despair, and disintegration? The only way out of our current predicament is to understand that our means must be consonant with our ends. We must engage in a politics worthy of our objectives and aspirations. We must reject the politics of division. Let me describe 10 points that characterize this type of politics, the politics of division. Short-term partisan thinking rather than a broader strategy for the greater good. Parties focus on campaigning rather than on governing. Rivals are treated as enemies. Pluralism is treated as an obstacle. Institutions become partisan instruments. Others are blamed rather than taking responsibility. Representatives focus far more on the grievances of the past than on the challenges of the future. Slogans take priority over programs. Simplicity is offered up in the face of complex solutions. Isolationism is demanded in an interconnected world. We are unfortunately very accustomed with this way of doing things in Catalonia. But we are not alone. It should be very familiar to you here and in other parts of the world. From Helsinki to Lisbon and from Miami to Seattle, it poses a challenge to all of us who believe in liberal democracy. This style of politics has many devotees and many facets. It is typical of populists who claim to speak in the name of a united people so that they may better divide them. It is typical of xenophobic forces that claim to be unique only to end up copying with their racist neighbors. This logic of polarization can only lead to Pyrrhic victories because who always ends up losing is the general interest. Where forces seek the destruction of their adversaries at all cost, they are inevitably working to undermine constitutional freedoms. Democracy requires mutual toleration, but polarization in its maximum expression exalts the plebiscite. Those who supposedly seek the vigorous clarity of a sharp decision fall into the trap of a lazy politics, a politics that renounces dialogue, consensus building, and the slow but essential important work of bringing people together across social divides. But there is another way of doing politics, where the broader strategy takes priority over the daily demands of the news cycle, where the government focuses on its main task, which is governing for the benefit of all, not on agitating a dividing society, where rivals are treated with respect, where pluralism is understood to be the bedrock of a healthy democracy, where the neutrality of the institutions is respected and checks and balances are preserved, where those in government hold themselves accountable to the highest standards, where the wrongs of the past serve to spur greater justice in the present, not an increase in bitterness, where politicians speak sensibly to a mature and democratic public, where the complexity of reality and the need for trade-offs is acknowledged, and where it is understood that we cannot face any of the great challenges if we got it alone. None of us can go it alone. Another way of doing politics is possible, and while it is at risk, undermined by authoritarians and would-be authoritarians, as we have, as committed Democrats, the obligation to continue to defend this inclusive way. It is the better way doing politics because it is the more inclusive way. And in the long run, it is the only way. In Catalonia, we have seen what the consequences are of a politics of division, of presidents who choose to confront rather than to unify. We have lost a decade on account of a sterile confrontation that has led to paralysis. Let me give you a few examples. The Greater Barcelona region faces the risk of a serious drought. Why? Because the government was not governing in the service of the general interest. When it comes to renewable energy, Catalonia has a lower share of production than Dubai. It has fallen behind the rest of Spain, which is one of Europe's clean energy superstars. Why? Because the years following the Paris Accords were squandered reviving 19th century battles instead of working to build the economy of the 21st century. Catalonia has long been a hub for innovation, for design, and for creativity. But our most recent PISA scores show that our students are falling behind. They have been provided with insufficient resources and insufficient support. And no doubt, you are all aware of the important exodus of some of Catalonia's leading companies, prompted by the regional government's inability to guarantee a minimum of stability and business confidence. As president, I will work tirelessly to bring them back. But let me also tell you, with a different way of doing politics and a different type of government, those companies would never had to have left in the first place. Not just in Catalonia, but in other places, you can also, no doubt, recognize and identify the many negative consequences of this way of doing politics, of the politics of division. Let's avoid the politics of polarization, if we can. When the institutions work to sow divisions, they begin to undermine themselves. When family members and co-workers are forced to choose sides, you generate a climate that becomes increasingly more intolerant and hostile to reasoned debate. And once reason has been entirely subordinated to the most inflamed passions, you will wake up one day to see it was all in vain, that your basic needs have been neglected, and that it would have been a much better idea not to go down that road. Is there any alternative? Our proposal, in one word, is federalism. Federalism is both a way of understanding the world and a way of governing ourselves. Federalism teaches us that different identities can coexist within the same polity, that unity does not require uniformity, that different creeds, nations, languages, and identities can come together to forge something even better out of the strength of their differences. The future is federal for Catalonia, for Spain, for Europe, and democracies to advance for the world. We are now in this together. That is the premise of federalism. The biggest problems of the day cannot be solved by individual countries or groups, no matter how strong they are. They will require a degree of unprecedented collaboration across borders and between countries. Grand challenges like tackling climate change, nuclear disarmament, or regulating artificial intelligence can only be dealt with in a multilateral fashion. Federalism allows us to advance in parallel with regards to our self-government, but also our shared government. Let me put it you another way, since this conference has been titled Strengthening Europe from Catalonia. Europe and Spain will be stronger if they have a greater presence in Catalonia, its people, its institutions, and its language. And Catalonia will be stronger if it has a greater presence of Spain and Europe, their institutions and their diversity. We want more Catalonia in Spain and Europe, and more Europe and Spain in Catalonia. Only by strengthening the ties that bind us, by coming together in an ever closer fashion, we will be able to preserve our most cherished democratic liberties. What is at stake is no less than whether we will continue to all be in this together. Just a few weeks before the upcoming European elections, we will have elections in Catalonia on the 12th of May. I have the greatest faith in Catalonia and its people, and I have the firm conviction that we will send the strongest possible message to the rest of Spain and Europe on the doorstep of the European elections. In Catalonia, we will choose reconciliation over division. In Catalonia, we will choose tolerance over discrimination. In Catalonia, we will choose cooperation and greater integration. In Catalonia, we will do our part and we will send a message to our brothers and sisters from Helsinki to Lisbon, from Dublin to Bucharest. We are all in this together. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Salvador. I think you've touched quite a lot of issues. You started painting the difficult situation we're in. You ended up with faith, bringing faith, the whole idea that if we work together, if there's more of Catalonia in Spain and in the rest of Europe, but there's also more of the rest of Europe and more of Spain in Catalonia, we can work together and solve many of the problems that we have to deal with and look into the future and rather than look into the past. So those are a lot of points that are giving us hope. but I'm sure that they have also raised quite a lot of questions. And I'm going to ask people to raise their hands, but I'm going to establish some rules. First one is that students have got priority over everyone else. So I'll start with students. And that if you're going to ask a question, in order to make sure that it remains a question, rather than making another alternative speech, you start and make the exercise of asking the question by saying what, where, how, to what extent, in order to keep it short. So please raise your hands and I'll start. Okay, let me start over there. I'm going to collect questions in groups of 3. Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's take the microphone. If you can say your name and what you're studying. So.
Buena vesprada, señor Illa. My name is Pablo. I'm a student here at the LSE, and I firstly wanted to thank you for giving us the time to ask you questions and for coming to our university. My question was regarding a statement you made in El Confidencial last year, in which you said that there will not be a self-determination, but the Catalan people will be consulted. How would this consultation take place, and how would the socialist voters over the rest of Spain feel regarding such an important issue being just talked in Catalonia, given that Catalonia's situation within the legal landmark of Spain affects all of the Spaniards? Thank you.
If we can collect questions, so there's another one over here.
Hi, thanks. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Álvaro del Mar Durán. I'm studying a master's here of mathematical economics at LSE. You mentioned the exodus of very relevant firms from Catalonia because of the political situation. I was wondering, in general, for the firms that stayed, what was the evolution in productivity of those firms? If they became less productive or more productive due to that complicated and unstable economic environment or political environment, if you may.
Okay, and Jimmy over here.
I wanted to know how you reconcile your call for consensus and unity when you have the rest of Spain utterly divided on the issue of amnesty.
Salvador, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your questions. Pablo, we are the Socialist Party of Catalonia, but also the PSOE. We oppose a self-determination referendum because we think it's divisive, and we think that Catalan society, but also Spanish society, that doesn't need more division. During the second decade of this century, probably because of the Great Recession as a starting point, there have been a wave of populism and of social distrust and of division in society. We have backed the pardon of politicians in prison, we have backed the change of the criminal law of Spain, and we have backed the amnesty as a generous thing of Spanish democracy to turn the page, to signal a turning point in Catalan and Spanish society. We think this helps. There are people who disagree with this statement, but we are convinced that these measures of generosity help to unify again the population. On the contrary, a self-determination referendum insists on the division of society and doesn't recognize that there is a possibility, according to a point of view, that having different identities and to coexist with different identities. This is why we oppose such a referendum. People of Catalonia express themselves voting. On the 12th of May, they're going to have the opportunity to vote and to choose the path for the regional government, for the Catalan government of Catalonia. I would say, Alvaro, that there was no difference on the productivity of the Catalan companies that move outside Barcelona regarding the productivity levels of other Spanish companies. The difference was the instability, the uncertainty during some days that were very difficult, not only for Catalan companies, but for the entire Catalan society, and the risk of suspended rule of law. And for the companies, for all companies, Catalan companies, Spanish companies, United Kingdom companies, it's very important to have a certain degree of certainty, stability, and of rule of law. This is why some of them took the decision of moving their headquarters. Now, let me say that the situation is completely different, fortunately. Things have changed, and I would say now in Catalonia, there are lots of companies investing, and there is a degree of certainty, and the rule of law is well established. Last question, it's true that there is a big confrontation in the Spanish politics regarding the amnesty law. I'm convinced that the Spanish democracy, one of the most advanced democracies, young but advanced democracy, has been able not only to resist this claim for independence that took place some years ago, but is also capable of overcoming it. And the way we think, the right way we think, the path to overcome it is through generosity, as I tried to explain. So it may not be enthusiasm in the Catalan society regarding the amnesty law, but there is a broad majority of Catalan society that understands that this is a necessary step to overcome the situation and to go back to normal politics and to devolve to the field of politics what should never go out of the field of politics. I think that some people in the field of Spanish politics disagree with this. Some of them maybe try to take advantage of this, which is legitimate. But I'm convinced that in few months, we're going to see that this was a good decision, an audacious decision, not a comfortable decision for the government of Spain, but a good decision, as it happened with the pardons. That when decided back in 2021, were the cause of a stark debate, and after some months, it was proof for someone who wants to just analyze with objectivity the reality of the Catalan society. It was to be admitted that there was a good decision to calm down the situation.
Thank you very much. More questions? Over here. Yes, please. Over there at the back.
Hola, buenas, Salvador, un plaer. My name is Paula Gonzalez. I'm a student here at the LSE in social policy. I wanted to be very clear about my question, even if I ramble. You were mentioning that to avoid fragmentation in Catalonia and in Europe, we must aim for policies that aim for inclusion and whatever. And I wanted to ask how that relates and how you implement that own perspective when it comes to sustainability policies, because sustainability policies are a big part of the European Union's main areas that they tackle and want to tackle. And sustainability policies are also some of the ones that create the most division. And your party, the Partido Socialista de Catalunya, yourself, have supported policies that have created a lot of division and fragmentation when it comes to sustainability, like giving support a la Copa América da Vela, d'aquest estiu, or giving support to Hard Rock project in Tarragona, which has led to the elections being called earlier. So my question, very straightforward, how do you reconcile not aiming for fragmentation and having inclusion with doing these policies that are going to create more fragmentation? And is your party going to continue with the Hard Rock project if you win the elections? Thank you.
Yeah, over here, you had you too. All right, so there's another question over there. that person at the back with a, and you.
So thank you very much. My name is Joseba. I'm from Bilbao, from Spain. And I wanted to reflect first on some aspects you mentioned. First, that institutions all over the European Union are politicized, that there is also an increase of right-wing parties, and third, that threatening democracy somewhere also implies that democracy overall is threatened. So many people would argue that maybe the amnesty could be a reflection of judiciary institutions being politicized. I personally think it
Joseba,
can
What we
imply.
said is try to make the exercise of
Yes, yeah,
starting
I'm
by
coming to my
why,
point.
when, what.
I'm coming to my point. Sorry. So finally, my point is, how do you think that the amnesty is going to help strengthening Europe from Catalonia? Thank you.
Thank you. And last question over here.
Hi, thank you. My name is Irene. I was a student here, no longer. My question is similar to the first one in terms of what does your party propose in terms of doing something relating to the climate emergency? You know, we mentioned the issue of hard rock. That doesn't seem like something good in that respect. How do you justify that? And further, what are your views in terms of a touristic model that is a bit kinder towards the climate? Obviously, tourism is a very important industry in Spain and in Catalonia, but you know, what is the future for this sector given the drought, etc.? Thank you very much.
So Salvador, please.
Thank you. We are for sustainable policies, and but we don't think that sustainability and sustainability policies are against generating prosperity. Something oppose both things. Some people and some other parties, which I respect, think that prosperity is always against sustainability. We don't share this point of view. And we think we have examples in Catalonia, in Spain, and many other places that you can generate prosperity, you can have a growing economy, and being very respectful with the environment and very tough on environmental requirements for any kind of project. This is our core thinking on this issue. So you were asking me about two projects. We think American Cup is a good sports event, and we don't think as opposed to sustainability policies. And you were also questioning me about a project in the south of Catalonia near Tarragona, which in fact includes hard rock, but not only it is. This project was not approved by my party. It was approved by other parties. My party supported it, but was not on government at that time. It was back in 2018, and there are other values to be preserved as the value of the rule of law. So if you want to be somebody and you want to be respected and you want to have a rule of law environment, you should keep with the rules. And what we also want is to hear what the people of the Camp de Tarragona think about this project, and they think this is a project that can generate prosperity in this part of Catalonia. So we have been, in fact, that's true, in favor of keeping the path, the administrative path of this project. And in other projects, for example, regarding the airport, the Barcelona airport, and other projects regarding infrastructure building, we are going always to be very tough on the environmental requirements, but we are not going to oppose this infrastructure, these projects, if we think that they help to bring prosperity to our country, to Catalonia. Joseba, I think that the institutions are politicized because they are being run by politicians. What I say is that there are two types of doing politics. What I say is that sometimes there is a politics of division that tries to take advantage and keep power, get the power or keep power by fomenting divisions of the population. And there is other type of politics which tries to make a public service and tries to serve the institutions, thinking on the general population, not all the people. I think the amnesty, I think I've been clear on this, amnesty law, it's an exceptional law to bring normality, which is a kind of contradiction. It has happened many times in Europe. It's not the first time an European democracy approves such a law. Sometimes you need exceptional measures to get back to normality. And I think it helps to unify the Catalan and Spanish society because it brings back to politics what should never get out of the field of politics. According to the Spanish Constitution, a political party can defend independence. This is out of question. They have the right to do so. They don't have the right to broken unilaterally the rule of law. This is what happened in 2017, and this is why the reaction of the legal reaction of the Spanish government and the Spanish society. But it's a bit strange that some politicians who can run in an election cannot come back to his country if they are elected. You may agree or may disagree, but I think everybody understands this is not a normal thing. And we think it's time to normalize the situation. And let me go a step further. I think this law, the amnesty law, normalizes in the institutional field what in Catalonia is normalized on the streets, in the society. This is why we back this. We know that nobody has the absolute truth. This is a debatable thing, and we may be wrong. We think we are not wrong. We think we are right. And we're going to see in the coming months, the coming time, if we are right or not. But in any case, the duty of a politician is to try to bring solutions. And this is what we try to do. And finally, Irene, we are very concerned with the climate emergency. I have shared the government during 1 year and 1 week with one of the best politicians that I know regarding environmental issues and climate fight, which is Teresa Rivera, Vice President of the Government of Spain. He has, I think, a high authority at the European level regarding these issues. If I may say this even a leading role at European level in this kind of policies. And I have learned very much of her approach to these issues. But again, being tough on these issues, being concerned with these issues, should not go, or in our way of thinking, it's not opposed to generating prosperity. So tourism is an important source for the Spanish and the Catalan economy. The industry of tourism must transform them itself, must do steps to adapt to this new situation. But we are not for disappearance, this industry. And the economy, the Catalan economy, the Spanish economy should not be only based on tourism, should also be based on industry, in services, financial services, in consultancy, but tourism is also, and it's going to be, an important part of Catalan and Spanish economy. Here, for example, we have, I mentioned it in my first intervention, we were at the leading position at the beginning of the century in Spain regarding renewable energies in Catalonia, but the last 10 years have been lost years regarding this issue. And Spain, on the contrary, is a superstar in renewable energy, which is a way also of fighting climate change.
Thank you very much. More questions? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Javier. I'm doing a master's here. So you made a point that a spirit of generosity has to animate the discourse in Catalonia. Do you believe there is a risk of bad faith actors within Catalonian society perhaps taking advantage of such generosity to further down a road that would ultimately be counterproductive to an animus of reconciliation, cultural exchange that you hope for?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ines. I'm a student here as well at the London School of Economics. So I wanted to ask, you mentioned that the amnesty would unify Spain and Catalonia in the future, but at the moment that doesn't seem to be the case. I wonder what is the change, what is going to trigger the change of mindset that in a few years the amnesty would in fact unify Spain, but it doesn't seem to be happening now.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Michael Reed. Just another question on the amnesty. I'm interested in your view of the Venice Commission's report, the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe on rule of law and democracy, and it opined last week that the amnesty should be approved by a qualified majority. There should be a period of public consultation, and it should not be an urgent measure, and it should not be so broadly drawn in terms of the time period, but also drawn to benefit specific individuals. I mean, their recommendations were quite detailed, and I'm interested in your view on them. Thanks.
Thank you. Salvador.
Javier, I'm convinced that the amnesty law is not going to be counterproductive. This is my conviction. According to my knowledge of the Catalan society, according to my conversation with different players in the Catalan society. That's my conviction. It's difficult to say anything more. I mean, I'm sure this goes on the right way. Why I'm saying this? Because we have taken two previous decisions that had helped to normalize the situation in Catalonia, the pardons and the change of the criminal law. That's my conviction. It's true that some people would help if had the courage to recognize some mistakes, but that's not my problem. That's the problem of the people who are having the courage to recognize past mistakes. This is about not intended for particular citizens. This is about intended for the whole Catalan society and the Spanish society. This law is targeted, is intended for the whole Catalan society, not for particular people. We want to turn the page. We want to turn the page over a decade that has been a lost decade for Catalonia. And the result of this lost decade can be recognized almost in every public policy. Let's take education. We were reading Spain. We are the vast region of Spain in terms of education. Let's take public health. We were reading Spain. We have lots of problems accumulating. Let's take infrastructure. We haven't been able to take decisions in the last 10 years, nor to update our airport, nor to update our infrastructure. Let's take renewable energy. We have been stuck at the 15% of the mix in Catalonia, while Spain has doubled the standard. So we want to turn the page of this lost decade. And we need to focus the energy of Catalan institutions to real problems. This is why we take this measure. We may be wrong, we may be right. Elena, you are right. At Spanish level, there is a lot of confrontation. The same confrontation and bitterness we saw at the beginning of the century when discussing the Catalan Statute of Autonomy. And, well, I respect the political position of the other parties, conservative parties in Spain. I respect, I don't share sometimes, many times, I would say even most of the times, the kind of language and the way of expressing things, but I respect their political position. I don't share it. But let's go to the facts. Since the socialist government runs Spanish, there has not been any single break of the rule of law. And with the previous government of Spain, conservative government, there were 2 illegal referendums and an attempt to claim the independence. These are the facts. You may like it or dislike it. These are the facts. So I claim the right to try to apply a policy that, for the moment being, is delivering results. And I ask everybody to be responsible. To be a Spanish patriot means to think of Spanish diversity, according to my point of view. And if we are mistaken, if we are wrong, Spanish people, when time comes, may elect other government or may choose another path. But for the moment, what I'm saying is that the policies of Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, which I share and I back, are delivering some results. Marco, I think you are right. The report of the Venice Commission has some points to be considered, but our understanding is that the Venice Commission is backing, mainly speaking, that's my understanding. We have been following the Venice Commission pronunciations of the Catalan situation for the last years. And I remember very well the Venice Commission reports on the referendum back in 2014 and 2017. And so we have been, and I think that ideally they point to a broader majority, to a bigger period of consultations. Well, but I think that the essence of the report of the Venice Commission is backing that this is a measure that the Spanish Parliament, Congreso de los Diputados, may adopt as it has adopted. And would I have liked more support to this measure? For sure I would. But everybody has the right to express their political position, and I fully respect, of course, the political position of every party.
Let's go there, please.
Thank you so much for being here. I am Andres at the Master in Local Economic Development. And my question is about economy and development. What are your main development policies that you are thinking? And what is your strategy to carry them out in Catalonia? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question over here, please. Where? Over here. If you can bring the microphones in.
Thank you, Celia Massa, Spanish correspondent. When you talk about amnesty, you say that is the proper decisions to return the stability and normality in Catalonia. But at the same time, you say that the referendum is a divisive option. So bearing this in mind, how is that possible that in order to recover the normality and stability in Catalonia, you are going to bring back Carles Puigdemont when his main goal is to hold this referendum? Thank you.
No, we cannot repeat questions otherwise. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Illa. Ignacio Perinatz from the Spanish Chamber. My question is, you said earlier in your speech that if you were elected president, you would try to bring back Catalan companies that left after the referendum. My question is, what specific policies would you implement?
Andres, it may be astonishing for you the way I'm going to try to answer your question regarding what is planned or what I have in my mind to develop the Catalan economy. Water and energy. Water and energy. We have a big problem with water availability because of a drought, and not having been able in the last 10 years, specifically in the last 3 years of a drought, to build more desalination plants or build more renewable recycling water plants to have more water available, and energy, green energy. We are now dependent on water and dependent on energy. So these are two basic items for the economy. Besides on this, there is a big problem, a big claim. This is not only in Catalonia, but particularly in Catalonia, about red tape and red carpet and bureaucracy to make things easier for people. And the other big demand by companies and by trade unions is stability. The last 10 years, we have held, I think, 5 elections in Catalonia, so people want stability, a term of 4 years that makes a frame of stability that allows to develop business. Carles Puigdemont and Pere Aragonès and Junts per Catalunya and Esquerra Republicana may have the right to ask for a referendum, but they have been asking for this many times. Well, this is the political position they claim. My conviction and what the polls say is that Catalan people are not for this now. What Catalan people demand and ask for is public services. What people in Catalonia is concerned for is not for a self-determination referendum that know that is illegal and has no sense at this moment. What they want is a better education for their sons. What they want is water for the companies they have, the people who are living in the cities. What they want is renewable energy. What they want is an infrastructure updated to the needs of the Catalan society. But what they want is to be part of this public space of 450 million people, which is European Union. And to be part of European Union, they must be part of Spain. And there is also quite strong majority, according to my point of view, of Catalan people who want to be involved in the construction of a better Spain and refuse to be at permanent confrontation with the Spanish government, always blaming the others, either local authorities or the Spanish government for the things that doesn't work in Catalonia. They want to be involved in the improving of Spain as a diverse, plural, interesting country with an economy that is working much better, let me say this, than other European economies at present, and be involved in Europe. And they know this was the key issue of overcoming better than other parts of Europe, and I say this with humility when confronting COVID-19. The key issue was that we worked together, not at the first stage, but soon after the first stage, to get vaccines and to have an European vaccination program. Working together, we were able to overcome this situation. And they know that to confront the situation that we have in Ukraine, we need to work together. So they say if they have the rights, Carles Puigdemont, Pere Aragonès, whichever ones, to ask for referendum. We don't share this point of view. And the important point is that I'm convinced that the majority of people of Catalonia doesn't want this. And the last question, sorry, was about two to 3 months ago, or maybe less, there was Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez was elected president with this coalition of different parties and negotiating a law for the Spanish Parliament. One of the Catalan parties, independentist Catalan parties, said that they wanted to fine Catalan companies that had left Catalonia and refused to return to Catalonia. This is the wrong way of doing things. The only thing you need to do is just make sure, build a frame of stability, of respect for the rule of law, make things easier for companies and let them take the right decisions, their own decisions, not force them. That's the only thing I'm going to do, and do more than talk and talk less. Do more and talk less. Companies in the European framework are going to take their decisions, and what they want is to have the headquarters where they have the production sites, to have the headquarters where they have the resources they need to do the business. And I assure you, Catalonia has lots of productive sites and lots of resources. And if we do the right things, or if we stop doing the wrong things, headquarters is going to come back.
More questions? Over here, yes, please.
Hello, my name is Sixto from LSE also. I was wondering, how do you see the relationship between the region of Catalonia and the city of Barcelona?
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, over there at the back.
Good evening. Thank you very much for being here and for your speech. I've got a question a bit more on the political side. So many socialist voters, I think, have been disappointed by Prime Minister Sanchez, who said he wouldn't do indultos, he wouldn't do the amnesty law, and then eventually did. How can a socialist voter today be sure that by voting for you or by voting by Sanchez in next elections, there won't be a referendum, even though I understood you're completely opposed to it, but what guarantees can you give to a socialist voter about this? Thank you.
Okay. Over here.
Hi, my name is Fernando. I work at the Education Office of the Spanish Embassy. Taking into account your answer about the necessity of the Catalan people of water, energy, and stability, and not talking so much about a referendum or whatever, and specifically not division, how would be your priority as next president of the Generalitat? How would be your effort on federalism, which I see quite difficult in the already quite divided Spain we have today.
Thank you, Salvador, please.
Well, Barcelona, the first question was that Barcelona is, I would say, an important asset for Catalonia, for Spain, and for Europe. Barcelona is a big city. It has a privileged situation, and it's one of the leading forces, not only of Catalonia, but of Spain also. Now, sometimes in the last years of the past century, the beginning of this century, there was a quite of not a competitive, but not a cooperation relationship between the Catalan government and the city of Barcelona, a kind of rivalry. Now we have seen during the last past years also this kind of rivalry, and the governments, the Catalan governments of the past 10 years, not only haven't cooperated with Barcelona or with municipalities, but many times have blocked the initiatives of Barcelona and other municipalities. This is the wrong way of doing things. I advocate for a big cooperation with between the Catalan government and Barcelona and other municipalities like Girona, Lleida, Tarragona, Manresa, or Tortosa. The municipal level of government in Spain and in Catalonia is very, very important and very rich. It's a source of energy. It's a source of ideas. So I can only contemplate a strong cooperation between the Catalan government and the City Council of Barcelona. And if I am president, that's what I'm going to try to do. Well, your question is, I understand perfectly your question. I tried to answer this at the referring to another colleague of you. A referendum is divisive. There are other reasons, legal reasons, but a self-determination referendum is divisive. It intends to broken society apart. And it would, this is why we oppose it, because it divides society. Regarding the other measures, you are right that sometimes we said they were not possible, and we have evolved on this. Why? Well, because we have seen the evolution of the Catalan society, and we have seen also the results, past decisions that in a pragmatist approach of the situation, which I defend always, I cannot contemplate politics without a certain doses of pragmatism. We have come up to the conclusion that we're right. But a self-determination referendum is out of place because it divides society. And let me tell you something with humility. I think the only political message that is addressed to the whole of the Catalan society is the message of the Socialist Party. We respect people who advocate independence. We don't share it. But we want them to have a better education. We want them to have better infrastructure. We want them to have water and to have clean energy. And we address our message to people who are like us, who is against independence. If you listen to the messages of other political parties, they are addressed only to half, at the maximum, to the half of the Catalan society. This is maybe the problem. Yeah. Fernando, my priority, the priority of my party is to turn the page of this lost decade. And turning the page for us means unifying Catalan society, work on things that can unify Catalan society, that can help to intensify, to highlight this common ground of the Catalan society, and our priority is public services, which is the way we think of unifying. So federalism is the outcome. Federalism is the technique that is going to help to build a stronger Europe, that is going to help Europe to face the necessary amplification of countries, to change the rules to take decisions. And it's the technique that's going to be able to do. But my main priority is for the coming 4 years in Catalonia is turning the page, unifying Catalan society and putting public services at the forefront of this.
Thank you. We have time for another final round of questions. Yes. The microphone is over there, so it's coming. Thanks.
So no, I will not start with a what. So challenging times in Catalonia and in the European Union, and elections in May in Catalonia and elections in June in the European Union. What can Catalonia give to the European Union in the coming years? And what does Catalonia need from the European, and in general regions in Europe, need from the European Union in the next few years?
Thank you very much. Behind you.
Hello, first of all, thank you for talking here. My name is Elena. I'm studying business and law. And my question is regarding the amnesty law. Should we then grant amnesty to all criminals who are charged with the same crimes in order to move forward? And does that mean that any future coups or illegal referendums are also going to be unpunished in order to normalize things? Thank you.
And final question from the audience. David, over here, please.
Hello, my name is David. I'm a master's student in local economic development. I was curious, you spoke a lot about bringing unity and fighting division. I was curious, if you're elected, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that you're going to face to that, and how would you overcome it?
Sorry?
What would be the greatest obstacle to that, to achieving unity, and how would you overcome that if elected?
Oh, dear Ambassador, I think that Catalonia and Spain can bring to Europe a way of overcoming a very difficult situation. Can bring the example of how a solid and democracy, as the Spanish democracy is, can, with generosity, overcome a difficult situation and bring back normality in one of the richest areas of Spain and of Europe. This is not a small thing. We have all in mind what has happened in other parts of the Western world with very solid and old democracies. What Europe brings, or really brings, to Catalonia, to Spain, is a public space of 450 million people that share three things that are very difficult to find in other places. We generate prosperity in Europe. We are a river of democracy, so there is freedom. And we have welfare state. We have public health, we have education, we have pensions. These three things are at the core, the defining three things of a European model, and bring a framework of stability and of assurances for sure to Catalonia and to Spain. Elena, I have few things new to say regarding amnesty and referendums. I mean, I assure you, I understand that there is people who doesn't agree with this measure, that they feel it's a mistake, that they think it's wrong, even people that they think it's going to fool again the independent sentiment. What I can tell you, I may be wrong, but I will tell you is that I'm convinced it's the contrary. And time is going to choose, I mean, tell us what was, if it was the right path. No? But I'm convinced, but I understand your point of view. I've talked with many people in Catalonia that, well, think have also some distress, but most of people there think this is, and I am among them, this is a necessary step. And David, I think the main obstacle, at least in Spain, is what I've tried to define as the politics of division, the politics of confrontation. There is a way of understanding politics that is short-sighted and that tries to cement the political space that you try to defend by opposing the others, not by explaining what you want. And there is the politics of confrontation with a stark language, I would say even a violent language. And I hate this kind of politics. I hate this kind of politics. And listen, I won the last Catalan elections, but I wasn't able to form a government. I have never blamed other people because the rules are clear. They had the right to form a government. And I, for the first minute, said they were legitimate, for sure, legitimate government. 4 days previous to the vote in Catalonia, all the independentist parties signed a public paper saying they wouldn't make any agreement with my party. 3 years later, the big step forwards in the Catalan politics have been done with an agreement with my party. Regarding the language, in the education, regarding the renovation of some institutions, and 2 budgets. Well, one budget, the other one, I reached an agreement, but it was not enough. This is the politics understood as a public service, making a priority to solve problems of the population with a respectful, or trying at least to use a respectful language, not a confrontational language. And I had strong reasons to remind the paper they signed. But at the end of the day, I'm convinced citizens want that political parties explain their projects, contrast their projects, but find a common ground. Find a common ground and try to make solutions. And this is, I would say, the main obstacle is that in the last decade, the politics of division has had stark examples, and hopefully is not gain new adepts in the coming European elections or in the coming US elections.
I'm glad that you continue like that, because I'm going to use my privilege as chair as for the last question. And most of the questions here have been about Catalonia, and that's understandable given the current situation and we have elections. But your presentation was about strengthening Europe from Catalonia. And you, when you started, you talk from Helsinki to Lisbon, from Miami to Seattle. What we have is a panorama of division, in which on the one hand, what you see is that many people feel disenfranchised from politics, and especially from the politics, with all due respect, that traditional parties actually represent. And as a result of that, they've been pushed, or they have heeded the calls of the streams, and especially by populist politicians that are taking advantage. So the situation in that respect is worrying, because they might have relatively good diagnosis, but their solutions, in my opinion, are far worse. And we saw what happened in the recent elections in the Netherlands. We had elections in our neighbor Portugal just a week and a bit ago. And we're going to have European elections. You were talking about the need to overcome division and bring unity. What can we do, whether we are in Barcelona or in Manresa, or we are in London, or we are anywhere, in order to make sure that we overcome those divisions? And what can be, in more concrete terms, done in order to make sure that the boring politics, boring with all respect, as the one that you are proposing, overcomes the divisive excitement, which means a lot of fun, perhaps fun in inverted commas today, but also it means that we are poorer, we're more divided, and we are in a much more dangerous situation in the future?
This is not an easy question to answer. But I am convinced that the way we answered together, Europeans, the pandemic, or the way we have reacted towards the war in Ukraine are two good examples of how things must be done. This boring politics has delivered. This boring politics of meetings with 27 states, trying to choose a committee of countries to negotiate vaccines, trying to agree time to start vaccination, trying to share the rules, headlines, the rules to how to administer vaccines were boring politics, but delivered a good result if you compare with other parts of the world. And the way we have confronted the war in Ukraine has made us stronger and more efficient. So is there any other way of doing things? Is there any other possibility of maintaining society, a public space of 450 million people who generate prosperity in freedom, democracies with a welfare state? In no other part of the world we have this, without working together, without electing representatives. Well, I may understand that there is fear about the issues of the future. I may understand that there is distrust, but I cannot see any other way of doing things. And I give lots of importance, maybe too much, I don't know, but I'm sure. I give a lot of importance to the political language, to the way of doing politics, to be respectful, to try to understand what the other parties or the other people try to defend, and to try to reach a common ground. Sometimes reaching an agreement is seen as a sign of weakness. I'm convinced it's the contrary. It's a sign of courage to reach agreements. What is the purpose in the democracy is not reaching agreements. I think this is the way of doing things. On besides of this, you must have a good communication policy. You must try to explain the view, but let's go to basics. Let's not confuse ourselves. A good marketing campaign is not going to solve our problems. And treating people like not adult citizens that are able to take their decisions is always the wrong road. The other one, it may be longer, more difficult, but it's the only road, at least, that I am able to defend and to present to the citizens.
Thank you very much. I think that's a fantastic ending, going back to the basic principles, basic concerns of citizens, working together with them, with friends and foes, building bridges across political decisions in order to build a much better, much stronger, and far more prosperous future. Thank you very much, Salvador Illa, for a fantastic presentation. And yes, and I think that round of applause was extremely deserved. You actually were here for more than an hour answering every single question without any filters. And I would like to thank you. I would like to invite you to come to the Cañada Blanca Center at the LSE anytime you want. Just let us know and we'll invite you. And to all of you, thank you very much for coming. And don't forget, this is the last event this term of the Cañada Blanca Center, but we'll bring more people, we'll have more events, we'll continue to do our research, and just stay tuned, follow us on Twitter or on LinkedIn, because we brought Salvador Illa, but we also had Nadia Calviño, we had Pablo Hernández de Cos, the governor of the Bank of Spain. We also had just a month ago, Elisa Ferreira, the commissioner for cohesion policy, And there are a lot of exciting events, and they cannot be as exciting without your participation and your questions. Thank you very much, and see you at the next event. Yo apoyo, pero la respondido magnífico. Entiendo. Está perfecto. Yo me he sentido muy cómodo y muy bien. Tantas preguntas repetidas y a las una persona. Pero es que la primera vez, pero es que lo sabía. Perdona por eso. Sí, es normal. ¿Por qué no te vienes con nosotros a la foto? Ah, bueno. Pero, José Pascual, vente con nosotros. Pero, ¿por qué no te vienes a la foto? A pesar de que el gato de la más que yo. El gato de la embajada. El gato Pepe de Mausa. Pero a pesar de todo tengo 100.000, ¿eh? Oye, pues está muy bien. Bien.